Hello, my name is Natalie Wheeler, and the topic that I chose to research for this project is classroom management. I chose to research classroom management because I am studying to be a teacher, and I feel as though classroom management is extremely important when teaching. Without classroom management, students are unable to learn effectively and stay engaged within the classroom. Therefore, I feel that classroom management was a very important topic for me to know more about. The overview of my research is history of classroom management, the teacher's biggest challenge, and strategies to implement in the classroom to aid in classroom management. These are the topics that I covered in my paper and that I will also cover in this presentation. First, I'm going to talk about the history of classroom management. Classroom management has been an issue since schools began. Of course, every student is not going to fall into line with the teacher's expectations. Students bring a lot of unique issues to the classroom. Sometimes they come hungry or tired, or sometimes they even have issues at home that are bigger than that. And that creates an environment for the teacher that is very challenging. Um, One of the articles that I read, which is Effective Classroom Management and Positive Teaching, stated that discipline was acknowledged as the largest problem teachers face in the classroom. And that is true today. We see classroom management issues being depicted very often in TV, on TV and in movies. And that is a very real life situation, especially in inner city schools where there's a lot of diversity and a lot of poverty. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the teacher's biggest challenge. Again, as I stated in the last slide, the teachers did communicate that they have a very big challenge with classroom management. And one of the challenges within classroom management that was reported is that teachers have a difficult time keeping order in the classroom. Again, my first bullet point there says teachers struggle with classroom management because students all come from unique backgrounds. And that, again, that poses a big issue within the classroom because then everyone has different perceptions and they also have different expectations at home. Therefore, the teacher has to be sure to set the stage for the expectations within the classroom. Also, several of the articles that I read pointed out that teachers come to the classroom unprepared to communicate expectations and procedures properly. The articles and the research stated that many teacher programs in college are based around content of, excuse me, what they're teaching, such as language arts or math, and not as much based around how to run a classroom properly. Therefore, when a teacher walks into the classroom, they are prepared to teach their content. However, they are not prepared to deal with management issues. Another issue that teachers struggle with is keeping the students engaged. We talk a lot about in my teachers program that all students have unique learning styles, such as some students are kinesthetic learners and some students are auditory learners. And also, students live in a world full of instant gratification. Therefore, when the lesson is a little bit hard to keep pushing through or is not as engaging as they would like it to be, they give up quickly. And that poses a challenge and connects to classroom management because if a student feels overly challenged, they give up and start having behavior issues. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the best practice strategies in the classroom and how to implement these for good classroom management. Many of the articles pointed out a lot of different strategies that could be used in the classroom. However, the common themes were the ones that I have listed here, which are proper planning, organization and clear expectations, clear rewards and consequences, and a safe and positive classroom environment. All of these four characteristics together will aid in a positive classroom management situation. First, I'm going to talk about proper planning. Proper planning is a groundwork in effective classroom management. Several of the articles pointed out that students learn by doing and not just sitting and listening. Therefore, a teacher needs to create projects and stations and things that get the students up and moving around instead of just lectures and notes. In those types of situations, such as stations and projects, they include a lot of planning, more so than just a lecture or guided notes. Students need to have engaging material that keeps them interested in order for the classroom to run smoothly. That creates not a problem, but that for the students to have engaging material, the teacher needs to do more research than if they just picked up the textbook that's provided to them and took material from that. Effective teachers get students working right when they walk into the classroom door. I'm sure many of you, if you're younger or had a very effective teacher, remember something called bell work. And bell work is when the students walk into the room, they see on the board immediately something that tells them to do something, such as to write something down or read something in their book. So they're not just walking around chatting, and then the teacher has a harder time bringing the class together to get class started. The next slide that I'm going to talk about is organization and clear expectations. When a teacher is organized and sets clear expectations, the classroom is able to have to run smoothly, and the students all know what to expect. So first, the organizations, every day should look similar. The students should know what to expect when they walk in the door. They shouldn't be walking in blindsided. The teacher typically should write on the board what the student needs on their desk and also the schedule for the day. I know I like to see a schedule for what I'm going to be doing in class, and many people don't like to be surprised. They would like to know what's going on, and the same with our students. They want to know what's going on. The classroom should be clean, organized, and set up for learning. Students should know where to look for assignments they missed or extra papers. When a student misses work, they should be able to go in within the classroom and find a spot that has the missing work so the teacher doesn't have to stop what they're doing to get the missing work. That's just part of the organization. Within the clear expectations, students should be given a written syllabus, much like we are given in our classes, so they have something to look back on to know what the expectations are. And also a teacher can point out, you saw this in the syllabus, and therefore you knew what to expect, so there's not any arguments. The expectations should not be excessive, and they should be easy to remember, and the expectations also should be posted. The research pointed out that there should be only about 5 rules or expectations that encompass several things, such as be on time and ready to learn. Well, that encompasses more than just one little issue. It encompasses, like, ready to learn means bringing your stuff, making sure you did your homework, etc. The next slide that creates, or the next thing I'm going to talk about that helps create a positive classroom management system is rewards and consequences. A lot of the research talked about how the rewards should be implemented more than consequences, and if the rewards were enough and the classroom management, and if the classroom management strategies were implemented enough, that consequences really should not be necessary. Some of the rewards that I found interesting in the research were a point system for turning in homework or for being polite in class and following directions. They could exchange points for small rewards, and such as the small rewards like sitting in the teacher's chair or bringing candy to class or getting a little treat from a box, and of course with high school students, those rewards would look a little bit differently. However, I feel that high school students still like those little rewards, like being able to sit in the hallway. Also, and I talked about how positive reinforcement is always favored over negative consequences. And over on the consequences side, that last bullet point reads, consequences should fit the crime, which is very true. We shouldn't be giving students consequences that do not fit the crime. One of the last situations in classroom management that I'm going to talk about, a safe and positive classroom environment. A lot of the research talked about how the teacher sets the tone for the classroom, and when the teacher is positive and upbeat, the students will be positive and upbeat. If the teacher says things such as, "Oh, I have to teach this lesson," then the students will feel that they are being put through a tough lesson and they won't want to listen either. So the teacher really does set the tone and should be positive and welcoming. Also, students should be expected to respect each other. They shouldn't be able to talk to each other in a negative tone. The classroom should have a warm feel with colorful posters and an inviting layout. A lot of the research talked about how the classroom should be set up more for conversations than just in rows. And I'm sure some of you remember that from high school. Physical surroundings should be arranged so that all students can see and be included in the discussions. A lot of classroom environments can change for the lesson, such as if there's going to be a group discussion, the teacher could put the desks in a circle, or if there's going to be a test, then that's when it would be appropriate for the desks to be lined up in rows. And lastly, here is my works cited page. And here is my works cited for the pictures. Thank you very much for listening.